Ekam aksharam hridhi nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate katham. हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति. हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तद्भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मनो सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. Namo Ramana. In this Thursday satsang from Ramanacentre Center for Learning, it has been our practice to read verses from Guru Vachaka Kovai. Two of the verses selected for us. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that shall be followed by a practice session of 10 minutes of self-enquiry. After these two segments of verse reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai, the meditation on its meaning, and the practice of Atma Vichara, after these two segments are completed, there will be summing up remarks by Shri Dilip Ji today, and that shall be followed by the offering of Shri Ramanacentre. The chanting will be by Vaibhav Ji and Prarthnama, and the floral offerings shall be by Shri Manjunath Ji from right here. We begin this evening satsang by taking the first verse selected for us, verse 215. We find this in the segment investigation into truth. The other two segments that follow are meditation on the truth and experience of the truth. Verse 215, the subsegment is power and peace. Shakti and Shanti. Power and peace, verse 215. The power of the self is only the power of divine grace. The power of the self is only the power of divine grace. Accordingly, there is no deed that cannot be successfully accomplished through the power of the self. It is this squalid delusion that dances, taking the body as I, that makes some assert what the power of the self cannot accomplish, the strength of shoulder and sword can. I'll read the verse again. The power of the self is only the power of divine grace. Accordingly, there is no deed that cannot be successfully accomplished through the power of the self. It is this squalid delusion that dances, taking the body as I, that makes some assert what the power of the self cannot accomplish, the strength of the shoulder and sword can. So, Ganapati Muni says, Shantir Nikantam Adhika Paramasya Shakti. The self-attention at its highest is the Paramashanti. It is the highest form of grace, the peace of the self. But it is also the Paramasya Shakti. It is the greatest power that can ever exist, come into existence. Because Bhagavan says the self turned inward is Shanti. And when it comes outward as Purana, it is the highest power. There is no power greater than that. Last few weeks, we have been trying to go through the extent of the connections that the power makes. That the power, when we investigate, like when we all gather here for this meeting, one moment back, 2 moments back, 3 moments back, when we go back and see each of those moments in the flowchart of life, how many deviations would have been given by the Shakti that is running us? How many are the deviations possible? There are infinite deviations possible each moment that the Shakti connecting us would have put us to. But somehow instead of that, it has allowed us to take the next step to come here. We were discussing a few of the events, the probability of the happening of which is impossible to imagine. In fact, it is really impossible, because the attempt is made only to see the power of divine grace. The power of divine grace, it is infinite. The connections it makes is infinite. How can the Jiva, who knows so little, how can he ever or she ever imagine what the preceding moment could have taken off as? And so many probabilities are arranged so that we can join here in this meeting. But the ego will take credit that by the power of my shoulder, by the power of this sword, I can get things done. But Bhagavan says here that there is not a thing that cannot be, there is not a deed that cannot be accomplished successfully with the power of divine grace, which is the power of the self, the Shakti. And the beauty, the infinity of the probability there, we are able to gauge that it is not even the connecting energy. For the purpose of logic and for the purpose of working, the billions of probabilities that could have taken up, but this particular event has come about, we say that the self is the connecting thread between these events. And each of those inflections have infinite other possibilities. And instead of going there, the life has flowed through this. But then even that is removed by Bhagavan by saying that all these deeds, all these events, all the worlds, they rise up, they exist, and they go into Laya in the mere presence of the self, he says. In the presence of this Purana. The Spurana that Bhagavan teaches is self-attention, is the Shakti of self. The ones who are self-attentive, there is no greater power than that, because nothing, all the objects have been observed there. Nothing objective can disturb the naturally self-attentive one. So self-attention is the the power. But then how does these objects, they go about, the deeds take place? Bhagavan says it is in the sannidhi of this Purana. Like the sun is radiating, it is merely radiating, self-attentive, but it just throws out the light as the sannidhi. In that sannidhi, the worlds are working. The same example Bhagavan uses for Ishvara. Ishvara is merely self-attentive. He is aham, aham, aham. Ishvara's aham, Bhagavan calls as Meyaham. The aham of Arunachala is the Meyaham. Meyaham means the true self, in which the non-self is not there. Because everything is he, everything is Arunachala. How can he say I and not I? That does it. So the aham of Arunachala is the pure I, and all the non-self, the arrangements of these worlds, they all happen in the sannidhi, in the presence of the aham spurana. In the presence of that spurana, these all automatically take place. Therefore, there is no way to say that power is connecting also. It is, if you are connecting, then there is a number of infinite probabilities you can work out. But it is not even in touch. Merely in the presence of that power, all these things are taking place. So that grace is really beyond our mind. The power of that grace is really beyond our mind. What does Bhagavan say? Why does Bhagavan say that any deed can be achieved by this power of grace? Initially, that the whole creation that is happening now is indeed happening by that power. And there are instances in Bhagavan's life where once he goes to Tiruvattriyur, where Ganapati Muni is there, he travels astrally. He says, one of the recordings says, I was not in Samadhi, and then I could see myself rise in the subtle body. I could see lights of towns down. Then I suddenly came to the street where Ganapati Muni was there, and I alighted and went to the bench on which there will be the old house. In those old houses, there will be a small laying space in front of every house where people can sit down in the evenings or lie down at night. There Ganapati Muni is seated, and he goes and has a conversation and comes back. In corroboration of Ganapati Muni's describing of that miracle, Bhagavan says he had that travel. Something like that was possible in the power of the self. A great rich man from Kashmir, he comes down along with his scootery, and he has a conversation with Bhagavan as best as he could, though not to his full satisfaction because it was in alien language. And he goes back for the night. That evening, his person who is assisting him, the help, he comes and reports to him, I talked with Bhagavan in Kashmiri. And Bhagavan replied in Kashmiri itself. And we had this conversation. He was so delighted to respond to me in Kashmiri. Now, how is that deed possible? And when they come back and ask Bhagavan, the rich man comes and says the next day, how you could do this? That you did not tell me you knew Kashmiri, and you have spoken in Kashmiri to my assistant. Then Bhagavan says, I don't know Kashmiri. Yeah, I know only the self, but these things happen in the power of the self. What is to happen, whatever may have to happen, however complex it may appear, will happen in that. That's why it is said that any deed can be accomplished successfully in the power of the self, in that sannidhi. But then once somebody has experienced that sannidhi, this purana, the shanti, why he will bother about any of the powers, the shanti of the self. It is what Bhagavan says we all are. Our nature is that Shanti. And the Shakti is automatic, spontaneous. It is automatic divine activity. And one is not to even think of it. Bhagavan says those actions of the jnani take place like a child who has gone to sleep and is fed by the mother. The mother feels the child has drunk the milk and sumptuously too. But next morning you wake up the child and ask the child, "What, mother? What, amma? I don't remember. I don't remember having eaten food." You are saying like this. Bhagavan says the jnani is their absorption in the self, in the sannidhi of the self, is so deep that the actions dissolve instantaneously. Only in the eyes of others the actions are there. The actions of the jnani are all instantaneously dissolving into the sannidhi itself. And Bhagavan is the sannidhi. The jnani is the sannidhi, is this purana. He has no intent, says see Pandit Lakshman Sharma and Kanakamal. The jnani has no intent that the conversation should go in this direction or that this should be the result. There is no sankalpa, and yet somehow in that grace, the actions of the jnani take place, and obviously those actions take us towards the self, the shanti of the self, and that's what we are going to practice for the next 10 minutes. Let us do self-enquiry, which takes us to that Paramashanti, our Swaswarupa, in which one effortlessly abides in. All the actions may take place, may not take place, but who is left to bother? One should only abide in the self. So let us practice for the next 10 minutes. Ujjwalji, you have the time with you? Thank you.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang by taking the second verse selected for us, verse number 1195. We find this in the Anubhava segment or Nididhyasana, the experience of the truth 1195. The subsegment is pure silence. Pure silence, Mauna. The means for Mauna Tapas is Jnana Vichara. The means for Mauna Tapas is Jnana Vichara 1195. In the perspective of a person who has awakened from a dream, all the experiences he underwent as a dreamer perish, becoming a matter for laughter. In the perspective of a person who has awakened from a dream, all the experiences he underwent as a dreamer perish, becoming a matter for laughter. Likewise, the experiences of a person, underwent as a jiva, which are an imaginary appearance in the self, are lost in his experience of the self as they are false. So many times Bhagavan says, treat the world as a dream, but that's what actually happens when we do self-enquiry, says Bhagavan here, that in the perspective of a person who has awakened from a dream, all the experiences he underwent as a dreamer perish, becoming a matter for laughter. Likewise, since the experiences a person underwent as jiva, which are imaginary appearance in the self, are lost in his experience of the self, they are all false. Bhagavan. There is a quote from Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, Talk 625. A dreamer dreams a dream. He sees the dream world with pleasures, pains, etc. But he wakes up and then loses all interest in the dream world. Of what use are those things that you have dreamed about in the waking world? It is absolutely useless. So it is with the waking world also. Just as the dream world, being only a part of yourself and not different from you, ceases to interest you, so also the present world would cease to interest you if you awake from this waking dream, samsara, and realize that it is a part of your self, the Atman, and not an objective reality. Because you think that you are apart from the objects around you, you desire a thing. Because you think you are apart from the objects around you and that the objects are really apart from you, you desire a thing. But if you understand that that thing was only a thought form, you would no longer desire it, says Bhagavan. So the process, actually what happens in Atma Vicharam, Bhagavan says that all the jiva experiences, like when talking about the dream and comparing it to the waking state journey of a pilgrim, of a sadhaka, Bhagavan says, you won't wake up from the dream if that dream is made of very good things. If that dream has lots of things that you like and everything goes according to your wish and you are crowned this or that and all that, you will not wake up from the dream, says Bhagavan. Only when there is a nightmare, Only when there is a trouble in the dream, you are being chased by a tiger in the dense forest, and you are running so hard that the heels are hitting the back of your head, and you are running for dear life. Almost the teeth of the tiger are sinking into you, and that is the time you wake up and realize this is just a dream. And that dream perishes, says Bhagavan here. That when somebody comes, we will laugh and tell, see, this is what happened to me. That I was thinking that I was in the dense forest and this tiger with all ferocity, it was chasing me. And then I woke up and I laughed at myself. We will say, similarly, the experiences that we have as a jiva, we do this, we do that, we seek happiness from this, we seek pleasure from that, we try to avoid pain and we try to arrange so that the insurance is proper, the proper education is right up in your the arsenal, and you're ready to face and earn your way through life and all that. And then one nice morning the whole meteor starts entering into your orbit, and it is threatening to take away that entire the structure that you have built as a jiva. And that is when you start inquiring, what is all this? In my case, I continued, though the meteor appeared, I continued in that same journey, trying to arrange this or that for some more years. And then by Bhagavan's grace, we realized that the problem and solution are inside us, in the form of the problem is the Chit Jada Granthi, the ego, and whatever it projects because of its darkness, whatever it projects is the waking state experiences. And when we put light on that Chit Jada Granthi by Bhagavan's grace, again and again, then that Granthi breaks apart. The dream structure built by the darkness of that ego, it just dismantles itself. There is a poet who says he loses a friend, very close one, and in his eulogy he says, of what use can be the sun or stars when such a thing can be taken away from me? They are all useless. Dismantle these stars, dismantle the sun, he says. So it is something that can be dismantled, and that's what Bhagavan says. They are all part of the self. That's why Bhagavan says in Ulladu Narpadu, Namandri, Naaledu, Nadedu. Where is time? Where is place apart from the self? When you understand that there is no existence for time and place apart from the Atman, then they are all dream, they are all parts, mere parts of the self. And once you understand that, you lose interest in these things, that you have to go there, find something adventurous and be satisfied by that. All that gets dismantled. The Jiva's journey, that somebody cunningly did this and took that away from me, and I should do something to take it back. All these things get dismantled in the peace of the self. That is the whole dream, the Jiva's journey that we have made. All the experiences that have been put together and taking which to be real, we have arranged the next step so carefully and seen that this is done, that is done, and then only we are safe. We understand that very safety as an individual we try to make is illusory, because individual himself, the Jiva himself, is not real. Whereas all the measures taken to protect him, whereas the Atman, when the ego is dismantled, makes this whole Jiva journey. Here the reference is to your Jiva journey, but once you have dismantled yourself, the whole dream, it falls apart. Nobody is really a Jiva. There is only the Atman. All the experiences, everybody say that this has happened like this, that has happened like this. They all join to connect and take away this from me and give me that, and they all that gets dismantled. And the only thing we need is the Atmanishto Bhavatvam, where this entire the putting together of various objects just falls away as a dream falls away in the waking state. There is not even the thought that I was in deep trouble and VKLV Kumar sir put me into meditation and he helped me so that I could turn around. The gratitude to that also gets converted into gratitude of the self. That when the story is up and about, we really understand that those were the instruments. But even those, along with the nightmares, they are all the self. The ones who have helped us are all the self. And our gratitude to them lies in abiding in the self. Even the Guru who comes and gives us Upadesha, even the Ramana Bhagavan who comes and gives us the Upadesham as inquire into yourself, Bhagavan quotes from Kaivalya Navanitam, one of the Sishyas who still has not dismantled the dream fully. He asked the Guru, "Oh Guru, you have given me the bliss of the Atman. How can I recompense you? How can I pay you back?" And the Guru says, "Abide in the self. Abide in the self. That is enough. You don't need to do, you don't need to pay any dream currency to me. I won't be fooled by that. Only abide in the self. That is the only thing that is required." So even the Guru who has appeared and given us instruction, he would want us, and we have to dismantle all that and abide in the pure self as as it is the case of Arunachala's Atma, the Meyaham. In that Meyaham, one has to abide. And Bhagavan says, from that Meyaham, don't ask anything. To Gambhiram Seshayar, he says, from that I, don't ask anything. It will give you Sayujya. It will merge you into that and reveal itself, not as a power, not as a knower, but as the mere being, as self, as I, where there is no other to employ the omnipotence or to know in omniscience. Only when the other is there, you can have power. Only when the other is there, you can know. There is absolutely no need for any power to be employed. There is no need for any knowledge to be employed or inquired into. Only abide in the self, the I. With Bhagavan's grace, when we practice Atma-ucharam, the Atma-ucharam will finally quieten down. Only when it takes us to that I, and when we are quiet and one with the self, that is when Atma-ucharam will no longer be needed. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in practice for 10 more minutes. Ujjwal ji, you'll help us out again. Thank you.
Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. I request Dilip ji to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana, sir.
Namo Ramana, sir. Namo Ramana. In these two beautiful verses, Bhagavan blessed us for the evening. It summarizes Bhagavan's Upadesham to Jamnalal Bajaj, which we actually meditated when we went to Tiruvannamalai this time. Bhagavan, in that verse, in that talk 502, says that the abidance of the self in the self as the self makes us accomplish aptakama, atmakama, and akamascha. He tells Jamnalal Bajaj that the abidance as the self makes sure that the aptakama and the atmakama and the akama becomes complete. In the first verse, Bhagavan says the power and the peace of the self ensures the atmakama, the aptakama and the atmakama is accomplished by the very abidance as a self, by the self itself. And in the second verse, the Bhagavan says, like a dream, everything is transcended, and therefore akamascha. And Nandakumar ji very beautifully brought out that it is my own imagination that how Bhagavan, by his grace, brings out that it is my own volition or attending into the division that makes me move and get into this effort. There is therefore no need for omnipotent or omniscient. Just the omnipresence is sufficient to take care of everything. And as Nandakumarji was saying this reminded me of that incident where the monkey king or the monkey king who was sitting there and listening to Bhagavan or was silently in the presence of Bhagavan Sannidhi decided to move like the way we, due to some sound or some thought, move away from our natural state. And Bhagavan is asking us, by that effort, Enda Samrajya Kattupore, what are you going to build with that? And asking us that in the presence of the self, when everything is assured and also transcended, why is that we are trying to make a movement? It is for us to inquire again and again, as Nandakumarji said, until it makes us or takes us home with the realization that the movement is, or the attention to the movement, giving it a reality and attending to it is the source of all problem. And therefore Bhagavan asks us, no matter how many thoughts are there and whatever may be the nature of the thought, to inquire and diligently turn back to our natural state here and now, which is the fulfillment of the aptakama, the atmakama, and the akamascha. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana, sir. May I request Vaibhavji and Prarthnama to do the chanting?
Yes. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेनमहंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्गीतावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्भ्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ जूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिकाखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजितचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिधाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ धूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्बोधस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेश्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ मन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ श्रोणादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत देव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हरिनिष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनः सेकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नमः लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्म संघिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्द पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की
जय।
नमो रमण अक्का ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ नमो रमण।
नमो रमण।